Hello, ladies. So let's talk about accepting the nature of males. And I do not hate men. I don't think all men are trash. I don't have any animosity or ill will towards men. I have not had any traumatic dating experiences with men, honestly. So this is all coming from a very unbiased place. And I have taken the time to do the research to kind of have confirmation of what I'm talking about in this video. And obviously, this subject alone is a very nuanced, there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of research and studies, so I can't cover it all in one video. So there's going to be different parts to this. And I will also be doing understanding female nature. And when I say female, it's a general term because I can't just say girls and women. I'm talking about females as a whole here. And I don't want to have to keep saying girls and women, so it doesn't come from a derogatory place. But there is one thing I want you to take from this video. If you take anything else, it's this. And it's that I believe that if a man wants to be a father and a good and loyal partner, he will actively work on being that, right? If he wants to be a decent human being in society, he will do that. Now, the key word here is want, meaning that you cannot make a man do what he does not want to do. And how this world is set up causes men to be in this back and forth battle within themselves. Honestly, same thing for women. This reality that we are living in has been created by men, by society, by humans, right? And there is a lot of nuance and bias and trauma and psychology that goes into it. But understanding men, I think, is very important for us women, not only because it helps us navigate the world better, but it is helpful to our psyche, right? Because a lot of the times we feel like we're crazy, like, okay, there seems to be a disconnect, I notice. And again, I just don't agree with the all right, all or nothing kind of mindset where like all men are this, all women are that. I feel like there are reasons behind why we do the things we do. And I feel like instead of just pointing fingers and coming from a place of insecurity, it's best to kind of understand where that is coming from, not to create excuses, but just so we can navigate that. And again, I believe that if a man wants to be a father and a good and loyal partner, he will actively work on being that, because that is what a lot of women, that is what a lot of females want, right? That is what we see on the media. We want that romantic relationship. We want a man that is loyal, that's loving, that's empathetic, that cares for us, a good husband, partner, a good father, right? And that is normal to want those things. But I do think that reality has created a fairy tale, right? And from a young age, what the fairy tale that we are seeing is not reality. And I first had my confirmation of this when I came across Priscilla, the Queen Maker. I'm not sure if you heard of her. If you haven't, I would check her out. I actually agree with a lot of her talking points. Again, I think I'm a bit more like unbiased. I'm not saying she's biased, but I think when you have any level of trauma with males, that there is just some sort of bias that comes from that, right? So I just have to, I may come across less like passionate about the subject, but that's just how I am in general. I first got my confirmation when I came across Priscilla's, a video, and this confirmed what I suspected. And I have always had a high level of awareness. I have been clocking the tea on relationships for as long as I can remember. As a young girl, I remember seeing relationship dynamics in church, and I was always able to see when something is off and something is wrong, and I've always been able to point it out. And I have been told, wow, you know, you're so young, yet you saw this coming. I always ask questions, and I think that a lot of children are like this. We are naturally curious as children, as humans. And a lot of our questions get suppressed. We're told to be quiet, to stop asking so much questions, to just let it go, whatever. But me, I've always asked questions. And even when I've been told to leave it alone, I didn't. I kind of always observed and I kept it to myself. I journaled. That's beside the point. The point is, I always knew that the romantic books I was reading, the movies I was watching, may have not been reality based on my environment. Now, it's very important to say that obviously your environment can shape your perspective. So you could have a very biased view on the world based on your environment. I was able to decode that. Because of my background, I was introduced to new environments. So I was able to see different relationship dynamics. I was able to really understand what's toxic and what's normal, right? And between. So again, all of that, seeing all of these different relationship dynamic played into the level of awareness I had when it comes to relationships. Now, I will say maybe this played a part into why I've never really been so crazy about the idea of marriage. I've always wanted to be a mom, and I've always wanted a dad for my child. I understood the concept of mom, dad, but I never like dreamed of a wedding. I never dreamed of being married and having a prince or whatever little girls dream about, which is perfectly normal if you do. Now, I loved reading romance book. I liked it. I was attracted to men. I was attracted to boys. I liked boys, but I think because of my awareness, I always proceeded with caution. And I think that plays a part into probably why I don't have any traumatic experiences with, in my dating past. Maybe because I moved with a high level of caution and that played a part. Either way, I knew that what they were feeding us was there's something that wasn't right about that, right? There is something that is very much wrong about this picture that is being painted. And hard pill to swallow, but this whole fairy tale thing about being with someone forever may not be as easily achievable as we may think. That's not to say it cannot happen, because it very much can. But you have to be able to find a man that wants to be those things, right? And you as a woman really need to get out of this fairy tale and gain some awareness of the male nature so you can kind of sift through and find that man and be compatible with that man. Something that I've noticed that holds a lot of females back is wanting a man to regulate their emotions. To me, that's crazy, because if you look at how males operate, they a lot of the time are suppressing their own emotions, and it's hard for them to understand how they feel, or they don't even want to put the effort into trying to understand how they feel because it's uncomfortable. And to me, it makes zero sense to ask another human being, much less a man, to regulate your emotions. So as a grown woman, if you cannot handle your emotions, then a man is the last thing you need. Now, not to say you shouldn't get support from your loved ones, not saying you should get a partner that's very cold and not emotionally regulated. No, not at all. But I think that expecting somebody else, whether that's friendship or a relationship, with a man, expecting them to regulate your emotions to help you deal with it is, in my opinion, wrong. Like, you shouldn't put all that on a person. It's a lot. I think you should lean on them for support, but not for the answer. And Let's go into what we do know about how men operate. Well, for one, we always hear that they are more logical than emotional. And of course, they have emotions. By nature, we are emotional beings as a whole, but how we process these emotions and the level of how we deal with these emotions and how we feel these emotions differs in men and women. And before we go into the process, we have to look at how the natural world operates. So, not the reality that humans created, right? With the cars and the jobs and the grocery stores. Everything is made to work in perfect order in the natural world. So, whether you believe in God or evolution, this world was created where everything works in perfect harmony. That's why we are able to be here and live the way that we do. Even all the hurricanes and tornadoes and storms and earthquakes, they all have a reason behind it, right? So when we look at how men operate, their biology and psychology was created in a way that gives them the best chance to survive and multiply in this world. Because I believe that ultimately our purpose in this world is to survive, multiply, connect with each other, right? When we look at religious texts, it also confirms this. So, what are the traits in men that allows them, to survive, to do this? So, when we look at biology, we think of their strength, their testosterone, right? They have spatial awareness that's good for hunting. They have great endurance, right? And even with boys maturing slower, that is a benefit for their survival because it helps them learn and develop in a longer time frame so they're able to best survive in the world around them, right? So for the most part, women, we understand the biology of men when it comes to that part. But I feel like the psychology is kind of where there's some confusion. So when it comes to male psychology, men take more risk. And again, that's how a lot of discoveries and inventions are made. We know men can be very analytical and logical in how they solve problems and how they approach situations. Status is also a big thing for men. Evolutionary wise, higher status gives you access to better resources and mates. Men are great at compartmentalizing, which is why they can take emotions out of the things that they do. Men are also very altruistic towards their tribe, their kin, and this is coming from an evolutionary standpoint, which again is key to helping them survive. So even within their own tribe, whether that be with their mates, their families, the community, so they do put importance on building relationships with their community. Now, evolutionary wise, there is a reason for men wanting to mate with several women. There is a better chance of them maximizing their gene pool. And, it just makes more sense in one aspect. Now, humans, we also pair bond. Males have the ability to pair bond. So that is where the monogamy part comes in, where evolutionary wise, it sometimes made more sense to pair bond with one mate because that increases the higher chance of the offspring surviving. Now, when it comes to the psychology, obviously it depends on the environment, right? So we've heard of this, or if you haven't, there's something called the Coolidge effect. That's where men will basically they want the novelty, right? They want the chase. They get bored after a while. And I heard that this was tested on women too. We have it. Obviously, because we kind of work differently, maybe ours is not as high as males, but there is something called the Coolidge effect, which we know this, right? Men love the chase, they love the hunt. And again, we have to understand that men love status. And throughout history, having multiple partners meant more power, more status. It's a dominance thing, right? And men do fall on the spectrum. So naturally, if a man has the ability to be with multiple women and it's in his nature to do so, he most likely will, right? We all hear a man will be as loyal as his as his opportunity, right? Not to say that all men will cheat. There are lots of men out there who have had plenty of opportunity to cheat and they didn't. I truly believe that. But again, I feel like it has to be a man that is truly a disciplined, he really works on himself, is what I'm trying to say. And that's where you hear the high value man, right? Like the man that he has the status, he has the power, so naturally he wants to have all these women, right? So, but that's not always the case, right? There are some men that, again, we have the pair bonding gene. So men do actually crave the meaningful relationship. They want to bond. They want to create a family and a strong community. But they tend to want this in the later stage of their lives, right? Mid 30s and on, right? That's typically when they tend to settle. They want to settle down, look for a family and everything. And we can see this in the modern times and how they operate. And again, the world is constantly changing and our genes are fighting to keep up. So we have to navigate this world with awareness, with caution, with understanding. And unfortunately, we have been fed a lot of fluff that is setting both men and women up for failure. Now, I know this is a lot of information and this was a very condensed version, but I do hope that you gain some understanding about the male nature. Feel free to fact check me, right? Like, go do your own research, come back, let's talk about it in the comment section. The point of this video was to bring some awareness, put some perspective on this fairy tale and this reality we have been fed. There is a part 2 that's gonna come out because I really want to come at this from a point, from a different perspective. I see a lot of male bashing. And yes, men do operate in ways that is hurtful to women, that is dangerous to women. Yes. Women also operate in a way that is also dangerous to women. That's where we have the male identified women, right? And the jealousy, the competition, and where all that comes to play. And that's where I want us to be more carefree, right? As women, if we are able to understand and accept the male nature and how they operate, we will be able to live our lives in a more carefree way. We won't be as stressed about relationships. We'll go into them with a different perspective, one that doesn't leave us feeling crazy and like we're doing something wrong, like there's something wrong with us, like we're not worthy, right? So that is my goal. I do hope that you guys did find value of this video. Please, let's have a conversation in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts and your opinions. And I would really appreciate it if you guys check out my online store, Pretty and Carefree. I have the cutest phone cases that I designed myself. I have vitamin water packets for the girls who want to be healthy because pretty girls are healthy. And I have cute sipper glass water bottles that I designed myself again. So I would love if you guys would support. I have more designs coming and everything, and I would love to take requests. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, ladies.